Welcome back everybody, my name's Nick930, and to celebrate the release of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, I wanted to look at video games that feature dinosaurs, and try to identify why we never seem to get good games with dinosaurs as the enemies. We get maybe 4 to 5 zombie games every year, some of which are decent, but why are developers so afraid to put dinos in their games? What's interesting is we used to get quite a few dinosaur-themed video games back in the late 90s and early 2000s. In 1996, we were introduced to the iconic Lara Croft in her first outing, which featured a short sequence where you needed to battle a few velociraptors and a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was a scene that came out of nowhere and is probably one of the most memorable moments of the original series, despite it not really having anything to do with the story or the plot. It was awesome sliding down into a secret valley and finding yourself fighting large velociraptors roughly the same size as the ones in the popular Jurassic Park film, and then having the ground shake as the massive T-Rex rounded the corner straight towards you. The developers couldn't help themselves with the sequels and threw in a T-Rex in the next 2 games. But those were just brief cameos. What about a full game that featured dinosaurs? Well, then we had Turok, a first-person shooter series all about shooting weird-looking sci-fi dinosaurs, some of which had machine guns and lasers attached. It was a fun shooter game that was immensely popular on the N64 and PC. It featured fast-paced combat just like the old Quake games, and a ton of enemies that weren't actually dinosaurs at all. You'd occasionally run into a Velociraptor or Triceratops, and eventually you get to fight a T-Rex. The T-Rex would make occasional appearances throughout the franchise, including the 2008 reboot of the series, which unfortunately didn't perform well. It's interesting how Turok is remembered so fondly as the Dinosaur Hunter, when there's only a handful of dinosaurs in the early games. But one franchise that probably did the best job featuring dinosaurs was Capcom's own Resident Evil clone, Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis utilizes identical controls and design elements seen in the early and highly successful Resident Evil titles, only it features raptors instead of zombies. The game focused on having you explore an abandoned facility while dodging raptors and the occasional T-Rex that would jump out and attack you. Since ammo was severely limited and it took a lot to kill a single dinosaur, you were forced to use less conventional methods like releasing steam from a vent or blocking a raptor's path with lasers. Even with its terrible control scheme, Dino Crisis is an enjoyable game today, and probably the closest game we've ever had to capturing the third act of the Jurassic Park film. So what happened to this series? Well, much like Turok, this franchise didn't survive the jump to the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. Dino Crisis 3 was the last entry in the franchise, and thanks to its poorly designed and outdated camera system, received very low ratings. Also, at this point, the Jurassic Park films had also started to see a decline in popularity. In 1997, The Lost World released with an incredible opening weekend, but a miserable overall rating. The series began to decline and was abruptly ended after the release of Jurassic Park 3 in 2001. Jurassic Park was finished, and audiences in 1998 were more captivated by World War II thanks to the hugely successful Saving Private Ryan, which, as you probably already guessed, triggered a huge influx in the amount of World War II shooters. Thankfully for Jurassic Park, the series was rebooted with Jurassic World, and while it may not be as good as the original film, it still managed to capture the imaginations of audiences and bring the series and its 65-million-year-old stars back into the spotlight. But what's interesting is that game developers don't appear as desperate in trying to copy movie trends anymore. Despite getting 5 or some superhero movies every year, there's a surprisingly small amount of superhero-based video games available on the market. Video games and the developers seem to no longer rely on what's popular in the cinema. Video games are far more mainstream than they ever used to be in the 90s, and so developers can tell the stories they want to tell, and still make some decent revenue. But what doesn't make sense to me is why developers aren't more interested in making a game with dinosaurs. According to a poll that Ubisoft released that asked gamers where they wanted to see Far Cry head next, an overwhelming 34% chose a Jurassic Park-style island with dinosaurs. This beat out a spaghetti western, post-apocalyptic, and Vietnam setting by a wide margin. There's clearly a huge interest in seeing a Jurassic Park-style video game done right, but for whatever reason, developers are too afraid to take on the challenge. There's a few independent developers that have tried to tackle the challenge and make a dinosaur-themed video game like Primal Carnage or Ark, but these games feel too sci-fi, and the focus often shifts away from the dinosaurs into just your typical online PvP situations. I think a major developer needs to step up and deliver a truly good survival horror experience with dinosaurs that doesn't have you blasting them away like Turok, but instead utilizing more stealth and creative approaches like in Alien Isolation. Imagine needing to sneak around a group of velociraptors in an abandoned park facility, or having to throw an object to distract a T-Rex and move around in a large open field. The tools are there to finally deliver a good Jurassic Park game, maybe even utilizing the license. Jurassic World Evolution is a pretty good game that lets you create and manage your own Jurassic theme park. But park simulation games will only appeal to so many people, and I think a better use for this IP is to create a truly immersive first-person survival horror experience. But unlike Alien Isolation, this game would also need to put more emphasis on the fact that dinosaurs are not all carnivorous monsters. We need to get more calm moments where you can simply appreciate these prehistoric creatures and watch them behave like they would have 65 million years ago. That's the fundamental problem with all the dinosaur games like Dino Crisis and Turok. We're stuck blowing them to pieces and shooting them in the face, but never get a chance to appreciate them like in the film. If a game managed to capture both aspects while also delivering a unique and fun challenge, then it would be a massive hit, something that developers should take note of and pursue instead of just giving us another open world zombie game. But what do you guys think? Do you want more dinosaurs in your video games? If you do, what kind of game do you want to see? Let me know in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos posted every week.